Hello everyone! Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you a heart-touching story. A story full of deep emotions, unforgettable love, silent pain, and powerful moments that will touch your heart. So, get ready to feel every word, live every moment, and maybe even cry a little. Let's begin this emotional and romantic story that stays with you long after it ends. Chapter 1. The Rain That Remembered Everything. The rain had a sound that only hearts in pain could hear. Not loud, not sharp, but soft, like the whisper of a memory brushing against your skin, reminding you of something you tried for years to forget. Avelyn stood beneath the old oak tree in the park, where everything had once begun. Her coat soaked, hair clinging to her face, but she didn't move, didn't care. The world could have stopped spinning, and she wouldn't have noticed. All she felt in that moment was the ache of silence, the heaviness of things unsaid, and the haunting presence of someone who had been gone far too long, but never truly left her heart. This was the place Kairo had kissed her for the first time. Not passionately, not perfectly, but in a way that made her believe the world could be soft, that love could be a shelter instead of a storm. That day was etched into her bones. The sky had looked the same, gray but calm, and the leaves above them had danced like they, too, were falling in love. She had worn that blue sweater he loved, and he had held her hand so gently, like she might break if he squeezed too tight. He told her she made everything feel lighter, even the darkness in his past, even the chaos in his soul. And she had believed him. God, she had believed every word. But some people carry wounds too deep to share, and Kairo had secrets he wrapped in silence, traumas he never named, fears that whispered in his ear when the nights grew too quiet. Avelyn had seen it, the way his eyes clouded when he talked about his father, the way he flinched at loud voices, the way he'd hold her hand at 3 a.m., like she was the only thing keeping him from drowning in his own thoughts. She tried to love him enough to quiet his pain. She gave him pieces of herself she never gave anyone else. She memorized the way his voice changed when he was lying, and the way he blinked twice before telling the truth. She learned the songs he hummed when he was nervous, the way he pulled at his sleeves when something upset him, the way he whispered her name like it was a prayer. And still, it hadn't been enough to keep him. He had left without warning, a whisper of himself fading into the wind. Just a letter, just 10 words. You deserve a love that doesn't hurt to hold. And then, silence. Years of silence. Avelyn had waited. Not for days, for years. Every morning she told herself it was over. Every night she dreamed he'd return. And still, the world moved on, and she stayed still, breathing, living, smiling for others, but never healing. Her friends told her to forget, that he didn't deserve her, that love shouldn't be painful. But how do you erase someone who feels like home? How do you forget the one person who saw you, really saw you, and still chose to stay, even if only for a little while? The pain had become a part of her, like a second heartbeat, quieter but always present. And now, standing under the same tree, with the same rain, she wasn't sure if she had come to say goodbye, or to hope again. Her fingers trembled as she reached into her pocket and pulled out the photo she always carried, worn out, almost faded, of the two of them smiling, arms around each other, eyes filled with stars. Then, the air shifted. She heard a familiar step, a breath that matched her own rhythm, a presence so hauntingly familiar it made her knees weak. Slowly, cautiously, she turned. And there he was. Kairo. Older, yes. More tired, perhaps. But his eyes, those same eyes that made her believe in forever. They stared at each other for a long time, neither speaking, the rain blurring everything except what truly mattered. And when he finally stepped forward, pulled out his own crumpled photograph, and whispered with a cracking voice, "I came back every year, hoping you would too," she broke. Tears she'd held in for years spilled freely, not because she was angry, but because she had waited for this. Not the apology, not the explanation, just this. Him standing there, still in love, still hers, still broken like her, but together at last. The night he almost said goodbye. It was the kind of night that felt too quiet, too still, as if the universe was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. And in that silence, under a sky scattered with tired stars, Avelyn lay beside Kairo on the rooftop of her apartment building, her head resting on his shoulder, his fingers tracing invisible circles on her arm, like he was trying to say all the things his voice couldn't find the strength to say. The city lights below twinkled like tiny, distant dreams, but all she could feel was the heaviness in the way he held her. Not the warmth she was used to, but something different, something distant, like he was already halfway gone. She didn't ask what was wrong, not at first, because sometimes love makes you afraid to know the truth. She simply laid there, listening to the soft hum of his breath, the way his heart seemed to beat slower than usual, as if each beat was a farewell, and he stared at the sky like he was looking for something. Maybe courage, maybe permission, maybe a sign, anything to help him make peace with the war going on inside him. And when he finally spoke, his voice cracked like a glass held too tightly, fragile and full of everything he couldn't contain anymore. "Do you ever feel like you're not meant to stay anywhere?" he asked, not really to her, but more to himself, and the words hit her like a cold wind. Unexpected, painful, real. She turned her head slowly to look at him, her heart aching because she had felt it too. The way he had been slipping away, little by little, like sand through open fingers, and no matter how tightly she held on, he kept drifting, quietly, silently. "You're not going anywhere," she said, more to convince herself than him, her voice firm but shaking. But he smiled that sad smile she had come to fear, the one he wore when he was pretending to be okay, the one he wore before shutting down completely. "Avelyn," he whispered, her name soft like a secret. "I don't want to hurt you, and I feel like I'm doing it more every day." Her throat tightened, her eyes burning with the tears she was trying to hide, because she knew what he meant. She had seen the darkness in him, the quiet sadness he never shared. And still, she had chosen him, every broken part, every scar. "You're not hurting me," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "You're the only thing keeping me from falling apart." But he looked away, and the silence that followed was louder than any scream. She reached for his hand, held it tightly, as if love alone could anchor him to her, as if her touch could convince him to stay. He didn't pull away, he never did. But he didn't hold on either. That night, they didn't speak much after that. They just laid there, hearts full of words they couldn't say, souls tangled in fear and longing. And when he finally walked her to her door and kissed her goodnight, it felt different. Not because it lacked love, but because it was heavy with it, like it carried 1,000 unsaid goodbyes. She closed the door and leaned against it, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway, and something inside her shattered, because she knew, somehow, deep down, that he had almost left that night, that he had stood on the edge of goodbye and fought himself to stay just a little longer. And that terrified her. The idea that love wasn't enough to make him feel like he belonged, that no matter how much she gave, he might still leave. But still, she hoped. Still, she loved. And every night after that, she prayed that the love between them would be louder than his fears, stronger than his past, and gentle enough to heal what he never dared to show. Chapter 3. The letter. She never wanted to read "The morning sun rose quietly, too gently," as if it knew that this day would carry the weight of something irreversible. And as Avelyn stirred awake, she felt a strange stillness in the air, the kind that doesn't bring peace, but instead delivers a warning, a silence that holds back a scream. The apartment was too quiet, and his side of the bed was cold. She sat up slowly, her fingers instinctively reaching for her phone, for a message, a missed call, anything. But there was nothing. Not even a note on the nightstand where he used to leave little sketches or scribbled lyrics that made her smile. Panic didn't arrive in a rush. It crept in slowly, like shadows sliding across the floor, and she wrapped herself in his hoodie, the one that still smelled like him, as if somehow it could hold her together. She walked around the apartment, the kitchen untouched, the coffee still grounded but not brewed, the bedroom closet door slightly open with a few empty hangers that hadn't been empty last night. Her heartbeat grew louder than the quiet around her. Then she saw it, on the dining table. A small envelope folded neatly, her name written in his handwriting that trembled slightly, just enough to tell her this wasn't a note he wanted to write. Her fingers froze as she stared at it, willing it to disappear, praying this wasn't real. But it was. It was everything she had feared, wrapped in paper and ink. She picked it up with hands that didn't feel like her own, her breath shallow, her world spinning without moving. Sitting down slowly, she opened it, the paper crackling like dry leaves beneath her fingertips. And there it was. His goodbye. "Avelyn, my love, I've rewritten this letter 100 times and torn it up 100 more. Not because I don't love you, God, I do, but because I don't know how to explain something that feels like drowning in my own mind. You are the brightest thing that ever happened to me. You saved me from myself every single day, but I am tired of being saved. I want to learn to stand without leaning on you like a crutch. I want to fix the parts of me that are still broken, and I can't do that while looking into your eyes, knowing I'm dragging you into my darkness. You deserve someone whole, someone who doesn't hurt you by just existing, someone who doesn't walk through life carrying invisible scars that keep bleeding into your love. I'm not that man. Maybe I never was. I thought I could be, for you, but I was wrong. Please don't hate me. Please don't wait. Please live." And then it ended. No apology, no signature, just empty space, like the space he left behind in her life. The letter slipped from her hands and floated to the floor, as if it, too, wanted to escape the pain it carried. Avelyn didn't cry immediately. The tears didn't come like a storm. They came like slow drips from a leaking faucet, quiet and endless. Her chest hurt in ways she didn't know were possible, and she felt everything and nothing all at once. The clock ticked, but time felt frozen. She stared at the door, half expecting him to walk back in and say it was all a mistake, that he forgot something, that he changed his mind. But he didn't. Hours passed. Days, maybe. She didn't remember. All she knew was that something inside her had broken in a way that could never be put back the same. Friends came and went, tried to console her, tried to distract her, but no one understood that grief doesn't always look like crying. Sometimes it looks like silence, like wearing his hoodie every night, like rereading a letter just to torture yourself with words that once came from love, but now only bring pain. She stopped answering calls, stopped writing in her journal, stopped playing the piano because every key reminded her of his laughter. Her world didn't just change, it collapsed. And in the middle of that ruin, she sat for weeks, clinging to a love that had let go of her. But even as she bled, even as she shattered, there was one thing she couldn't do. She couldn't stop loving him, not because he deserved it, but because when love is real, it doesn't leave just because the person does. It stays. Quietly. Painfully. Always. And maybe she would never see him again, never get the closure she deserved. But one day, not today, and maybe not tomorrow, she would learn to live with the emptiness he left behind, not as a wound, but as a reminder that she once loved with her whole heart. And in that quiet, aching truth, there was still something beautiful, because loving someone, even if they leave, even if it hurts, is never a mistake. It's a memory carved into the soul, forever tender, forever true,